Welcome everyone to German Tool Reviews. Today we have the Festool Pro 5 Limited Edition Sander. This is the Sander Sustainer combo that was offered at $99 back in early October. I will tell you that I don't have any other Festool power tools and never felt the justification to get one due to the premium price. When I saw the promotion announced on Facebook, that same day I pre-ordered the unit from festoolproducts.com for $99 that includes shipping. Not only does the unit contain a 5-inch Orbital sander, but also includes a blue sustainer and a $50 voucher for a future Festool purchase. I figured this would be a good introduction into Festool products, as I do quite a bit of millwork restoration, and I could possibly use some of their tools for that. Before we get into the actual review, we should first talk about the promotion and how it was handled by Festool. The promotion was announced on October 4th, and the units were due to ship in early November. Obviously, they were targeting this promotion for the holiday season, and it would have made a great gift for someone who is not familiar with Festool products. After ordering the product, I didn't think much about it. It wasn't until I received an email a couple days later from ToolNut, which owns the festoolproducts.com domain, that there was some confusion about the status of the promotion. Apparently, there was a huge response to the promotion, and all the Festool distributors were inundated with pre-orders for the unit, so much so that Festool had to suspend the promotion. Only someone at Festool could comment on the number of units that were actually manufactured for the promotion, but it was obviously not anywhere close to meet the demand. It really was a failure of knowing how the market would respond to the first Festool power tool under $100. Suffice to say, there were definitely more than a few people who were upset about missing the promotion. So the question came up on their Facebook announcement of why the price was so low on this product. As noted in their own words, they heard from many people who wanted to buy Festool products but were too expensive. They wanted to give an affordable option to anyone wanting to buy their first Festool product with the hope they would eventually buy many more. Unfortunately, I think this may have had the opposite effect on those who pre-ordered the unit as their first Festool and had to wait 3 to 6 months to receive it. On October 4th, after I saw the announcement, I placed a pre-order for the unit from festoolproducts.com, which is a domain owned by toolnut.com. I placed the order on that same day at 5:47 p.m. to be exact, less than 12 hours within the announcement of the promotion. I thought that this was the last I would hear from it and was expecting to get the tool in early November as noted on the promotional flyer. About 2 weeks go by and I get an email from ToolNut indicating that Festool has asked all dealers to suspend taking pre-orders for the unit on October 7th. They also note that they ordered enough units to fulfill all of the pre-orders they took in those first 4 days. Like I said before, I don't keep up with the Festool buyersphere, so this was the first I heard about this. Another week goes by, and I get another email from ToolNut indicating that they are not going to receive enough sanders to fulfill all the pre-orders on the November 1st ship date. I did get 2 more emails from ToolNut, with one on November 8th finally confirming the ship date of January 19th. This ended up being the exact day that it was shipped. I will say that ToolNut did a great job of communicating the situation and keeping everyone informed of their ETA ship date. I know I was lucky to get mine only 2 months late, as there are people still waiting until the end of March to get theirs. I can only imagine the amount of angry phone calls that their customer service had to deal with for this promotion. Now that we have that out of the way, onto the tool. I'm not sure if it was Festool or ToolNut that packaged the unit this way, but it was done very well with the styrofoam on all 4 corners inside of the cardboard box. First thing you will notice is that this comes in a dark blue sustainer, which is not a normal Festool sustainer color. I believe this dark blue is used only for limited edition products. So let's go ahead and crack it open. On the lid of the sustainer is a cardboard insert that contains the part numbers and accessories for the RTS 400 REQ, DTS 400 REQ, and the Pro 5 LTD models. There is also a foam block to hold the sander in place to prevent movement when transporting. Now let's take a quick inventory of all the items in the kit. A loose 120 grit sanding pad, not really sure what that is all about. A tool registration and warranty card. A $50 voucher card for a future Festool purchase. A sampler package of the granite sanding pads. The instruction manual for the Pro 5 LTD sander. A hose adapter, a modular power cord, the sander itself, and a detachable guard. Now let's take a detailed look at each of the accessories. First up is the guard with part number 100-19262. The piece is stamped with PA6-GK50 mark, which is a nylon variety I've not encountered before. After doing some research, I found a company in Germany that produces this composite, and from their datasheet it is not as strong as a PA6GF30 plastic. It is 50% filled with something, but it's definitely not glass fibers. Now onto the sanding pad sampler pack. In this case it is from their lines of granite sanding discs. Not sure what the significance of the name granite is, but this is actually Polish for grenade. I'm also not sure about the note, Festool is not responsible for typographic errors. I don't think I've ever seen this on a physical product before. Typically this is something you use in advertising to protect against a printing mistake in a price or description. They must have had some issues in the past. Included are 2 each of the 80, 120, 150, 180, and 220 grit sanding pads. The 8-hole pattern does not appear to be universal, so don't plan on finding a compatible sanding disc at your local hardware store. Also included is a hose adapter that allows the sander to be connected to their mobile dust collection system. This would really only be useful if you have one of their dust extractors or vacuums, as the connections appear to be proprietary. Taking a quick look at the manual, there's a lot of information on the dust collection attachment that is not included with this kit. I know they're trying to keep the cost down on this unit, but I think that this would be an essential accessory since not all of us have a Festool dust collection system. I think this is the first sander I've ever bought that did not include a dust bag of some sort. One thing that definitely should have been included in the manual or externally is a packing list so you know that not anything is missing. Next up is the modular power cord, which is UL rated at 105 degrees Celsius, 300 volts, and contains two 18 American wire gauge conductors. I looked up the UL number and it came back to the TA HSING company out of Taiwan. The outer jacket material is sort of a soft rubber-like material. It is definitely not PVC. The connector end appears to be well made with some nice strain relief and no exposed wiring. Onto the warranty and registration card, you can see they offer a 3-year warranty and claim to have only a 48-hour turnaround time for making repairs. I do like how they have a 10-year lifespan on all parts. Finally, onto the actual sander. Pro 5 limited sander is equivalent to the ETS 125 EQ sander. Now what I'm scratching my head about is that they have actually discontinued this particular model. I guess they were serious about making this a limited edition. Note that the production date of this unit is in December of 2016, about a month after this was initially supposed to ship. So I guess they had to do another production run to meet the demand for this promotion. I think I'm now convinced that the primary reason that Festool prices are so high is that they would need to drastically scale their production capabilities in order to meet the demand if their prices were lower. It's a concept known as economies of scale, or in this case, diseconomies of scale, whereby the cost associated with expanding production outweighs the potential increase in revenue. Nonetheless, the unit seems to be pretty well made for the current price point. The entire outside is a hard plastic with the exception of the top, which is a hard rubber material. The modular power cord attaches using a twist lock connector. This modular power cord design does seem like it's adding some cost and complexity to the tool. I can understand this for 220 volt tools that have multiple mains type plugs, but as far as I know, all countries that use 110 volt use the same style NEMA plug. It just seems a little over-engineered for something that you're probably only going to plug in once and leave it that way. The guard attaches by sliding it onto the front until it clicks in. This is probably something that I would never have a use for. We'll go ahead and plug it in and make sure everything's working first. I'm actually surprised how quiet this unit is at the lowest speeds. It does get a little bit louder at higher speeds, but not by much. There is very little vibration transferred to the housing of the unit. And since I like taking things apart, we'll definitely void the warranty and take a peek inside. The sanding pad is held on with 4 Torx screws, each with a bit of thread locker applied. The sanding pad is also made of the same PA6 GF50 material as the guard. Now what is quite surprising is this big chunk of brass that is used for a counterweight. Essentially the way that this style of orbital sander works is a shaft spins a counterweight that creates vibrations which are transferred to the sanding pad. This was definitely not a cheap part to make. Maybe someone could give some insight on why brass was used here instead of a cheaper material. Breaking into the top housing requires just removing 2 self-tapping screws. The very top cover looks to be there just to hold the power switch in place, which is a rocker that actuates a spring lever. A very nice job of routing the wires in the second cover. Taking off 2 more Torx screws allows the secondary cover to be popped off, which also exposes the brush holders. The secondary cover contains a potted control board which flying leads are coming off of it and going to the field windings. There are just some tabbed quick disconnects on the other end. Taking out the brushes allow the armature to be separated from the housing. The field windings are held in place underneath a cover with 2 self-tapping screws. It was definitely held in place with a very tight fit, and I need to use a punch to help get it out. It looks like it was pushed in with a hydraulic press when it was assembled. Now looking at the field windings, we can see a place where there could be a potential problem in the future. The solid wires going to each of the quick disconnect terminals does not appear to be supported very well and could easily break off in the future due to metal fatigue from vibrations. This last connection is typically made with a stranded wire for this reason. If you compare this to the other German-made tools we have torn down previously, it is pretty obvious that this is not nearly as robust. It also looks like the connection between those wires and the quick disconnect tabs is made with a punch-down block-like mechanism. Punch-down blocks, which use a insulation displacement connector type, are good for stationary telecommunication control panels, but not anything that experiences any kind of vibration. A much more reliable connection would have been to solder this wire directly to the quick disconnect tab. My guess is that if your sander fails, the first place to check would be these connections in the field winding. The main bearing is an NSK branded 6260 made in Japan. The armature and commutator look to be well constructed. I didn't see any potential issues. Well, that's about as far as I'm going to go on taking this thing apart, as it looks like going any farther may be destructive due to the metal banding that is wrapped around the bottom. So let's go ahead and put everything back together and actually test this thing. So here's one of those projects that I need to get around to finishing. Probably about 2 years ago, there was a 1960s vintage desk that was being thrown into the dumpster, so I decided to take it home to restore it. There is a thick oak veneer on the front of these drawers that I was planning on refinishing. I've currently been using this Craftsman Orbital sander for the past decade, and it has been pretty solid. We'll compare that against the Festool to see if there's a noticeable difference. We'll use an 80, 120, 220 grit sanding progression. For the Craftsman test, the 80 grit I'm using here is a Diablo brand, while the other two are Gator branded. For the Festool, I had to MacGyver something together to at least give the dust somewhere to go using an old Porter cable dust bag. I really wish they could have included a shop vac attachment. What I noticed is that the Festool is definitely much easier to handle. It does not tend to walk on you like other sanders I've used. It is also much easier on your hands as less vibration is transferred to the handle. It is definitely more suited as a finishing sander and not for something if you need to take off a lot of material. If we compare the results of the two sanders, it is obvious that the Festool is providing a much better finish. I didn't do a very good job of getting out all the swirl marks using the Craftsman sander. This does not seem to be an issue with the Festool. I'll probably have to go back over this one with the Festool to get those marks out. So it looks like the product is definitely performing up to expectations as a great finishing sander. I really do like how everything integrates nicely in the Sustainer package. My main issues were more on how they handled the promotion and the lack of essential accessories missing from the kit. So in the future, I hope to get one of those Festool dust collection systems and integrate it with this sander. Well, that wraps up this review of the Festool Pro 5 limited edition sander. Check out the link in the description below to the full review. If you like this video, subscribe for more reviews of German brand tools.